All right, Brian Todd, thank you. Let's bring in former FBI Assistant Director and CNN Senior Law Enforcement Analyst Tom Fuentes, as well as CNN Law Enforcement Analyst Art Roderick. Art, let me start with you. The Visitor Center, it can accommodate 4,000 tourists, I'm told. What kind of security has been established inside that building?
Well, I'm pretty familiar with that area. I've been in and out of there several times, and I'm glad to hear that this incident occurred right there at the doors, because that is exactly where the magnetometers and the security are. We had initial reports that there was a possibility it was inside one of the small movie theaters that they have in there, which means it would have been deep into this visitors area, which to me would have been a problem, because that means somebody had got the weapon past security. But it sounds like both the equipment and the law enforcement response was right on, and they were able to engage the individual right there at the magnetometer and make sure that that person did not get into that area.
Tom, take us through what investigators right now are likely trying to determine.
Jake, the main thing is trying to get his full identity, verify who this person is, whether they acted alone, whether he's affiliated with any kind of a terror group. You know, some of the attacks at the Capitol in the past have been from white supremacist groups. So this may be ISIS sympathizer, or it may not. It could be just a lone nut that decided to take a gun in there and threatened the police and got shot doing it. So that's what they'll be trying to learn. Is he an individual? Is he politically or religiously affiliated with some group, or did he act alone? And is this truly over?
We're going to be getting a press conference, and we're going to carry it live in about 5 minutes. Local police will be giving an update on the status, and we will bring that to you live. But let's continue this conversation. Art, you can actually trace the history of security on Capitol Hill through the various shootings that have happened there. In 1954, a number of Puerto Rican nationalists got into the chamber and actually shot 5 members of the House of Representatives. Security was extended. In 1998, a white supremacist, I believe, was able to get into the Capitol building. The perimeter was extended. Now we have an incident happening outside the Capitol at the Capitol Hill Visitor Center.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very familiar with how the Capitol Police train. They actually train at one of the federal law enforcement training center facilities up in Maryland, and they actually have a mock area of the Capitol that they use to actually practice active shooter incidences, suspicious packages, all these types of incidents that occurred. And of course, they also do in-service training there at the Capitol, but they are well trained for these types of incidences. And unfortunately, through trial and error, they've become very good at what they do. And a good indication is what happened today, where they were actually engaged the individual right there at the security point.
Tom, as we've been discussing, a male suspect is in custody. He is, if not at the hospital, en route to the hospital after being shot by Capitol Police. Do you think it's likely that at this point he has been identified?
I would think so, Jake. I think it's very likely that he's been identified, and I think that, you know, they will withhold that information for now so that they can get to his residence, to family members, co-workers, others that may be familiar with him before the media gets to those locations. So they may hold back the identity for some length of time in order to be able to get far enough into their investigation and not be obstructed by what's going to ensue when the media tries to go to those locations also.
You know, Jake, one of the other issues, too, is
Go ahead, Art. I'm sorry.
No, if you saw that shot with Brian Todd, you can see that they have the barriers up on the street there. That street is usually blocked off all the way up to the Capitol, and you only can get in there by foot. So I think the first thing they're going to have to do is, okay, where is this individual's vehicle? Locate that vehicle, and then obviously search it.
Right, and Tom Fuentes, as you've noted, white supremacist groups have posed threats to the Capitol. Of course, in this era of ISIS, everyone is very sensitive right now to any possible Islamist terrorism. We don't have any evidence about any motive behind this individual or his identity, but certainly coming after Belgium, certainly coming after the attacks in France, law enforcement at the Capitol already on heightened alert.
No, that's true. And what you don't know is whether this is a coincidence, a copycat, you know, what it might be. So that's That's the fear that they have. That's why the quick reaction to lock everybody down, secure the premises, and try to figure out whether they have multiple people posing a threat at multiple locations, both in the Capitol or throughout the country. So, that's the reason for the quick response. But it would have happened anyway, with or without Belgium or Paris or any of the prior attacks that we've seen already in Europe.
Also joining me on the phone is former U.S. Secret Service agent and former NYPD detective Dan Bongino. Dan, your response to the news from the Capitol.
Well, Jake, this really highlights the difference between access control and security. We've seen this problem over and over, where you have an unsecure area, then you have magnetometers, then you have a secure area. I've said over and over, access control, a ticket's an access control device, a ticket to a football game. What we have to do to solve this problem is we have to engage in a more vibrant, comprehensive security program in the United States that's focused more on some of the softer issues, Jake. Surveillance, external surveillance around the Capitol, counter surveillance, looking for people in advance that could be surveilling the Capitol as a potential target. We have to really reinvest in our intelligence operations in the United States, because as soft targets become a priority, you're going to see this situation present itself again and again. You saw it in the airport in Brussels, and you saw it here today, although there's no indication whatsoever this is terrorism. I want to be clear. You saw the same problem appear today at the Capitol.
Well, just to play that out, let me ask you a little bit further. In terms of what happened at the Brussels airport, what could have been done beyond what was done? You see individuals with suitcases. You don't know that they have bombs in their bags. It could be just what is normally in a suitcase.
Right. That's a fair question. It's very easy to call out a problem if you don't have solutions. Here's the solution. The Israelis have been doing this for a long time. They have a very vigorous behavioral profiling system. I want to be very clear on this, a behavioral profiling system. It's not based on physical characteristics. It's based on certain behaviors, everything from things like micro expressions, Jake, little things in people's faces, expressions they make that they may not know they're making, to clothing, to the way people twitch, and what we would call in the Secret Service jokingly, the duck walk. When someone's carrying a gun, they'll use their elbow to feel for the gun. They don't even know they're doing it. These are the kind of things you can train people. Listen, none of this is 100%. No, I'm not suggesting that, but what I'm saying is it's the kind of thing we really have to reinvest in, because as soft targets become the new primary target, it's going to be absolutely impossible to keep pushing these perimeters out farther and farther. There'll be nothing left in Washington, D.C. to be able to walk around as a free man or woman. We can't do that.
No, absolutely not. And Art and Tom, let me bring you back into this conversation, because obviously the Israeli model is one thing, but there is not the same tradition of openness and the ability and ease to access the United States Capitol that there is in Israel. There is not the same sense that the Knesset is the people's building and anyone can go in and see their member of Knesset as there is in the U.S. House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate, Tom.
No, that's true, and I've lived and worked in and around Washington, D.C. for several decades now, and the problem, especially in the mall area of Washington, is you're besieged by visitors from around the world. And tourists that come in, they dress according to their native attire in their country, not necessarily to what might be the local fashion here. So many people are going to look different. They're going to have different color skins and different clothings and head attire, scarves, hats, things like that. And so really, in a way, you just have too many people that would look too different, requiring too much law enforcement attention to be able to allow that in Washington. Especially, this is probably the peak tourist week, with the exception of the 4th of July, that you have in Washington. The cherry blossom spring break time, then later this summer we'll have July 4th tourism. And you just have millions of people, and they don't look like the rest of us, and that's just a fact of life here.
All right, let me bring in Chris Freites, if I can. He's on Capitol Hill, I believe. Chris, what's the latest where you are?
Yeah, so we have some news coming
Freites?
in here, Jake. I can tell you that the suspect entered the Capitol Visitor Center, and as he went through the metal detectors, that's when an alarm sounded. When that alarm sounded, the suspect began to draw his weapon, and that's when Capitol Police shot the suspect. So this is a new information with the tick-tock of exactly how this went down, Jake. So just to repeat, the suspect entering the Capitol Visitor Center, that's in the basement of the Capitol. He started to go through the metal detector. The metal detector, of course, sensing that gun, setting off an alarm. As that alarm went off, he drew his weapon, and that's when Capitol Police fired. And we're getting that from sources here on Capitol Hill. And I can also tell you that legislative leaders, most of the legislative leadership on the Hill today were not in Washington, starting with House Speaker Paul Ryan. He was not in Washington. He's been briefed on this incident, however. Also, his counterpart on the Senate side, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader, was home in Louisville when this all went down. I'm told by his staff they're certain he has also been briefed. On the Democratic side, Nancy Pelosi was in San Francisco. We've not yet heard from Harry Reid's office. He's a Senate Democratic leader, so we're still waiting to hear back from him. And I'm told the leadership staff for those three members all safe and sound, so that is good news. But while this all went down, most of the legislative leadership, in fact, most of the lawmakers, Jake, were not here today. It was Easter recess. The Congress was not in session. So if this had to happen, today was a day where there was not as much traffic on the Hill because Congress was not in session. But really, the breaking news here that we're following, the suspect entered the Capitol Visitor Center, set off the alarm as he went through, pulled his gun, and as he did that, he was shot by Capitol Police officers, Jake.
All right, Chris Freites on Capitol Hill. We're going to take a very quick break. We are expecting a live press conference from the Capitol Hill Police Department on what exactly transpired. We'll bring you a lot more right after this quick break. Stay with us.